everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Carolyn, and in this video I'm going to be ranking the 32 eyeshadow palettes that I tried in 2023, and I'm going to be ranking them from least favorite to most favorite. So if that sounds interesting to you, then just keep on watching. So it's been a few months since I've posted on here, and that's just because we moved across the country and I still haven't gotten fully settled in. We left a lot of our furniture behind, like we gave it away, but we didn't bring a lot of our furniture with us, and I just don't have the way, my beauty room isn't set up the way I want it to be to film and everything, so that's why I haven't posted. But I did want to get this video up because I just wanted to make sure I got my ranking video up for all the eyeshadow palettes that I tried. This is one of my favorite videos to watch on YouTube and also to film, so I did want to get this video up. But I have 32 eyeshadow palettes to rank. Most of them didn't release in 2023. I just tried them for the first time in 2023. I did want to say quite a few of these were sent to me from my friends on YouTube and Instagram. So I'm very thankful to them for that. Because we were moving across the country, I did do a pretty big declutter before we moved, and a lot of the palettes I'm going to be talking about I decluttered. So I'll put pictures up around here. I actually had a friend at the time who was just getting into makeup and didn't have any makeup, so I gave a lot of my makeup to her. So it was kind of serendipitous with the timing and everything. So I was able to declutter quite a bit of my makeup. So the palettes that I don't have, I will be putting on the screen. And yeah, without further ado, I'm just gonna get into it. I have 32 eyeshadow palettes to rank, and I'll probably put the number on the screen because I'm going to put the number on the screen because I'm probably going to lose track. So yeah, I'll just get started. So I have 32 palettes, and this is spoiler, this is number 32. I did want to say that none of the palettes that I'm going to be ranking are terrible or unworkable. They're all perform fine. It's just personal preference and that kind of thing. And so the number 32 is my Urban Decay Naked Mini 3 palette. And I kind of hate to put this here because it was a gift from my father-in-law for Christmas. My dog Stella has come to join us, but so this had to rank somewhere, and this honestly is a lot like the Urban Decay Naked 3 quality. And I did have the original Naked palette, the Naked 2 and the Naked 3 at one point in time, and the Naked 3 was my least favorite in terms of quality and just the way it looked on me and everything. And this is very similar quality and tones, obviously. So yeah, it's just ranked here. The performance is fine. I will say this has quite a bit of fallout, and just compared to the rest of my palettes, this has just had to fall at the number 32 spot. I did save it from my declutter because it was a gift from my father-in-law, and it makes me think of him when I see it, so I did keep it around. But yeah, so that's number 32. Number 31 is the Natasha Denona Mini Tropic palette, and this was sent to me by my friend Deb on YouTube, and this was one I did give to my friend. I gave her this palette and then another palette that's ranking a little bit higher because I felt like they paired well together. It was another Natasha Denona mini palette, well, 5-pan, not the mini, but I'll get to that. But yeah, the Mini Tropic, I just thought the color story was a little bit difficult to come up with a cohesive look with just that palette, but I did think it was a fun little companion palette. I did find that it worked best if I thought about it as just 5 singles instead of trying to make an eyeshadow palette or an eyeshadow look with it. But yeah, so that was number 31. Next in the ranking, I have the Colourpop Lost in Wonderland. This was the Alice in Wonderland palette that they did, and I've seen this in a lot. It's a color story thing for me. I've seen this in a lot of palette ranking videos. People say that if we just had like if this shade that way was a darker matte, like a darker purple or blue matte or something, it would have made this palette a lot better. But I still enjoy it. I really like the shimmers in this palette. I particularly like this I'm Late shade, which is, it's not a pressed glitter because there's no Aceb. It's not a pressed glitter, but it kind of performs like a pressed glitter. Well, better than a pressed glitter because there isn't the fallout, but it's very sparkly and a really nice topper shade for me. So I've used this quite a bit as a topper shade, and I really like the shimmers in this palette. So it's not my favorite color story, but I still really like this palette. Next, I have this one. This is another color story thing. This is the Colourpop Snow White palette, and it's just a boring color story for me. Most of the shades perform well, although these 2 shades, they kind of seem like they're shimmer shades, but they perform more like matte shades, and they also like don't really blend out particularly well. So what I find, how I like to use these 2 shades, or really any of these 4 shades as like lid shimmer shades, I like to put one of these down and layer this kind of Super Shock shade, it's called Ever After, on top, and it gives a really cool effect to all 4 of these kind of shimmer shades. This shade doesn't show up on me really at all, so it's kind of pointless for me. This is a very light shade for me, so I really like having this palette. I got it for the packaging, and I know I'm kind of in the minority of people who buy palettes just for the packaging, but I don't care. It makes me happy, and I really like having this. Okay, next I have this Clarity Cosmetics, the Evil Mermaid palette. This is one that I recently got from their like Black Friday sale. Well, it was free, but you had to pay for shipping. It was the scavenger hunt thing they were doing, and I thought that was really cool. So I just had to pay for shipping for this. And so they did this thing where they had free palettes. You just had to look for the free palette, and it was pretty easy to find because it just had the price tag of $0. And then you just paid for shipping. But this is ranked kind of lower because it's very messy. I don't know if the camera's gonna pick up on the messiness, but there's sparkles in all of the mattes, and there's sparkles just all over the palette. These shimmer shades, I don't really enjoy them because, well, they're very messy. They're darker than what they look in the pan. These 2 are very similar on the eyes, and I did a look with mostly this shade all over the lid and like this and that outer portion of the lid, but it still looked like I had a dark blue shimmer all over my lid, so I didn't really like that. And then working with these is kind of like working with a loose shadow but in pressed form. I don't really like messy shadows. I don't really do like loose powders unless it's a setting powder, but I don't like loose blushes or loose eyeshadows or anything like that. So yeah, for me this is just kind of a messy palette, and I didn't really like it, which I feel bad about, but yeah, it is what it is. This is actually one I'm just gonna be decluttering, so yeah, I'm not gonna keep this palette. But I did like that I got to try the brand, and I thought the scavenger hunt, like giving away free palettes, was pretty cool of them. Next is the Natasha Denona Jubilee palette, and this is the palette. I really liked this palette actually, but I thought it was the one that paired well with the Mini Tropic, and so I wanted to give that to my friend. So I did declutter that one, but I thought it was a fun color story. I liked the little pop of yellow, and yeah, I really actually enjoyed that palette, but I just felt like my friend would probably get more use out of it than I would. And the shade that looks black is actually blue. It's a cream to powder formula, or a cream to powder shadow, but I don't really have anything negative to say about that palette. It was just where it fell in the ranking. And then next is the Natasha Denona Iona palette, and this one I actually missed. I did declutter this one, obviously, but I really liked there was 2 mattes in there that worked really well for as eyebrow shades. I used like a lighter one in the front half of my eyebrows, and then the darker one the tail of my eyebrows, and I really liked that. And it would have made a really good travel palette, and I was wishing I had it when I traveled, but I decluttered it. So yeah, it's just, the reason it's where it is just it's kind of like a boring color story, but it's a handy one to have. So yeah. Another one I decluttered. Oh, and by the way, the Natasha Denona, Iona, and Jubilee were also sent to me by Deb. And this next one, the Too Faced Sunset Stripped, was sent to me by my friend Ms. Moxy May on Instagram. And I did like that palette. It was just very neutral, and so I gave it to my sister-in-law when we moved, and she was really happy to get it. She said she would get a lot of use out of it, and yeah, I just felt like she would probably use it a lot more than I would, so I was happy to give that to her. But it is a good palette if you like neutral palettes. It's pretty easy to come up with a look, in my opinion, with that palette. Yeah, I had no issues with it. I will note that it had a strong perfume smell, which is why she decluttered it to me in the first place. So that was like the only negative with that palette, and that it was very neutral. The next one was also sent to me from Deb. I feel bad because I gave my friend like almost all the eyeshadow palettes that Deb sent me. I did keep one, but yeah, she sent me a lot of different things, and I kept a lot of the things that she sent me, but a lot of the eyeshadow palettes I gave to my friend because I felt like she would like them a lot, and I needed to get rid of a lot of things. So anyway, the next one is the Jungle Lights palette from Flower Beauty, and yeah, this one, amazing formula. Like everybody says, it's a really great formula. The shadows are very metallic. They last all day, didn't crease, like no issues. I just didn't find myself, I had to kind of force myself to use the shadows because I'm just not really good at using all shimmer palettes, because I just prefer to use the shimmers that are already in my palettes. So that's why I gave that palette to her, and also because I thought she would really like it because it is a really good formula. And then the next one is actually another all shimmer palette, but I did keep this one. This was another one that was sent to me from Ms. Moxy May on Instagram, and I kept this one because they aren't just, well, with the packaging. I do really like the packaging, and I will keep a palette just for the packaging. But these are all special shimmers, and like duochrome, shifty in some way, and I do really like this palette. I just kind of wish it wasn't all shimmers, but I still like it. So, and it's so cute, all the little gnomes and everything. And I guess I won't go on too long about this because you can't get it anymore. Next I have the Melt Blueprint palette, and this was sent to me by my friend Christine from the Bedazzled Buddhist on YouTube. And it was so sweet of her because I did a declutter video, and in my last declutter I think I said I wanted all the melt palettes, and she sent me all the ones she had. I think well, she sent me quite a few, so that was so sweet, and I'll never be getting rid of these. I kind of collect Melt at this point, but this palette is ranked where it is because it needs a companion palette. These are too dark for transition shades for me, and I need a transition shade. So this is a companion palette, but I think it performed, like all the shades perform well, like they don't have any issues with them. The shimmers are kind of more like satins. They're not like normal indie shimmers. I think Melt really does well more with their mattes and their shimmers, but I do like the shimmers in this palette. I don't have anything really negative to say about this except for it's like more of a companion palette for me, but I do really like it, and I really like the packaging too as well. Next I have the Colorpop Nightmare Before Christmas palette. This was one that Deb sent me that I kept and I wanted it because of the packaging, and so she sent it to me, which was super sweet. I really like this palette. I don't have anything really negative to say about it. I will say actually these two kind of like neon shades don't last particularly well on my eyes, but they apply fine. They aren't as good as some other ones I have coming up. But yeah, I think this is a really fun color story. At first it kind of threw me off with these cool tones mixed with these bright shades, but they do work well together actually. So I think this is a really fun little palette, and I don't think it's still available, but I don't know. I hope they bring it back because I think it's a fun little palette and I do really like it. Next I have the Sigma Alice in Wonderland palette. This one is more of just a formula issue for me. I really like the theming. I love Alice in Wonderland. I like the color story. I just find that the mattes aren't my favorite matte formula, but they're still workable. They're fine. And then the shimmers are more like subtle shimmers, but they're really pretty. So that's where this is ranking, but I do really like it. I want to get the other Disney palettes that Sigma has. The Beauty and the Beast, definitely. I love Beauty and the Beast, Alice in Wonderland, Beauty and the Beast, Little Mermaid. Actually, I have a lot of Disney princesses that I really like, but Beauty and the Beast is up there. In fact, I actually have a dog named Belle, named after Belle, Beauty and the Beast. Anyway, I want to get that palette and the Cinderella one as well. I really like that the Sigma does these Disney palettes. And anyway, moving on. Next I have Melt Smoke Sessions, another one that was sent by Christine. This one is another one that needs a companion palette. Like, these mattes are way too dark to use on their own for me. I need some sort of shade to like blend them out, to transition shade. And then these shimmers are kind of more like satiny shimmers, or not quite full-on metallic, but I don't mind that. I don't need an intense shimmer every time I do my eyeshadow. So I do really like these, and I like the tones of these shades. Like, they're kind of murky and dingy, dirty looking, except for these two are more like bright and not. But these are more like grungy tones, and I really like that. And I feel like this will rank or will pair really well with the Melt Bailey Seran I have that's further up. I guess that's a little bit of a spoiler, but a lot of you already know that if you follow me on Instagram and everything, that I got that palette, and I feel like this will pair really well with that palette, so I'm excited to try that. Next I have the What's Up Beauty Desert Monsoon palette. I got this with Shelly at Chandler Mall. Shelly from Unapologetically Shelly. We went to Chandler Mall and I got this palette with her. She got the same one, and I wanted it because it's Arizona indie brand, and I'm from Arizona, and this front cover is very Arizona to me, so I wanted it. And I bought it when I was still living in Arizona. Anyway, that's the thing. This palette is like, everything performs fine, and I don't really have anything negative to say about it. This was the only palette I took with me when I did my cross-country move, and we stopped at a few different places, and anyway, this was the only palette I brought with me, so yeah, I do like it, and everything performs fine. It's just like a bit of a slightly boring color story. Well, I think like this shade and this shade are just kind of blah for me. I feel like that would be like the inner corner shade for me, and it's just not my favorite inner corner shade. But yeah, not really any complaints about this palette. It's fine. Next, I have the Odin's Eye in collaboration with Makeup Just for Fun, Amanda from Makeup Just for Fun. This is the Flora Story palette, and it's very pretty. I did get all three, and this is my least favorite of the three. It's kind of muted and not very vibrant, and this orchid shade I did have some issues with, but overall it's really pretty. Next is the Melt Morte palette. This is also sent to me from Christine, and it's so pretty. I do really like this palette. The reason it's ranked where it is because it's really dark, and I need to pair it with another palette because I just need, like, this is the only shade I can use as a transition shade. So I need more variation and depth. I need lighter shades, but it is really pretty. I'm so grateful that Christine sent me this and the rest of the Melt palettes that she sent me. I just think it's super sweet. Next is the Sea Talk palette, and this was the Odin's Eye. They did 3 palettes, and this is in collaboration with Lauren May Beauty. And I love the artwork on this palette. I love the color story. I did have some issues with, I think, Night Swim and Dolphin Tail, but they were still workable. It is just overall a really pretty palette. It's very summery to me, reminds me of the pool, and it just makes me happy when I look at this palette. This shade looks really pink, but it's not. It's more of like a toppery shade, but it is very pretty. It's just a really pretty palette. I like this pop of yellow here, but I just like the rest of these palettes a little bit more. Next, I have the Berry Icy from Simply Posh. This was sent to me by my friend Brittany from Brittany Ray Beauty. She sent this after I moved. So yeah, I really like this palette, and she sent me another one too that's a little bit higher up, but I really like this palette. The mattes all perform well. The shimmers are really, I like the shimmer formula because they're really sparkly but kind of thin. They're thin, sparkly. They're just a really beautiful formula. So it's the Berry Icy palette. I don't think it's available. I don't know if they're gonna bring it back or not, but yeah, it's a good palette. Next, I have the Mel Gemini 2 palette, another one that was sent to me from Chris. I really like this palette. I love the rosy tones. The formula is fantastic. I love the Melt Matte formula. These 3 shades are like kind of redundant. Like I pretty much just used this one for transition shade. But these 2 are here if you prefer like a lighter look. But yeah, overall, I really like this palette. And this next one I did by myself. It's the Gemini. And I just like this. It was hard to choose between the Gemini 2 and the Gemini, because I think the rosy tones are really flattering. But I also really like this one. It's kind of grungy. So the mattes are really good. It's a really cool color story. Nothing really negative to say about it. Well, I will say the shimmers are okay. Like they're not the best shimmers I've used, but again, I like Melt for their mattes. So yeah. Next, I have the Saints Angel Centers Fairy Light palette in collaboration with Sophia Sadie, and this I won in a giveaway from Caitlin Foreman, and I love her channel. She has a channel on YouTube, and she does a lot of indie makeup reviews and just different eyeshadow palette content, which I love, and I just love her personality. She's really fun. So I highly recommend checking her channel out. But I won this in her giveaway, and I really like this palette. This is the only palette I've tried from the brand, but I felt like everything performs well, and I actually really like the colors in here because I think, you know, I love pink and gray. I love pink and green, and there's like some grungy tones in here. I just think this is a really good color story. I'm not a fan of the background. It's kind of distracting from the colors, but it's fine. I really like the shimmers in here. I already said that. The matte formula is good. Yeah, I don't really have anything negative to say about it other than this background, but it's fine. It's really not a big deal. And then that's the front of it. So yeah, I was very impressed with this palette. And then this is the Simply Posh Genuine Gems palette. This was also sent to me from Brittany. She sent me the Berry Icy one and this one. And I was actually surprised at how much I liked this, because I thought these would be like too bright or too not light enough for transition shades, this top row. But it actually, the formula is more buildable, and it just worked. It still worked with these, all worked as transition shades for me. So I was kind of surprised about that, and I just think this is a really pretty palette. I think the tones are pretty unique. I don't have shades like this in other palettes, and then I really like the shimmer formula from Simply Posh. I definitely want to get their newer palettes at some point. The Aurora Lights and the Cozy Cabin, those are their new palettes, and I want to get them at some point. But yeah, I really like this palette. Nothing negative to say about this palette. Okay, next I have the Mel Bailey Seran, the Mel Fatally Yours palette in collaboration with Bailey Seran. This one, I kind of hate ranking it this low. It's not low, but it's lower than I want it to be because I do love it so much, because I love Bailey, I love Mel's, and this palette is gorgeous. But I have to rank it a tiny bit lower because some of these shades are a lot darker than on the lids than what they look like in the pan, like Seran? I don't know how you say that one. And this shade. And I feel like you just get a couple transition shades, like Arsenic, Cyanide maybe, and Kerosene are good for transition shades. But everything, a lot of these shades are just really dark. So that's my only issue with this palette. I still love it though. I love the plaid background. I love the plaid shadows. This one arrived broken, a little bit broken. So that was kind of a bummer, but I still love this palette. I'm super glad I was able to get it. And yeah, I wish I could have put it higher because it is one of my favorite palettes because of what it is. But as far as ranking goes, I just couldn't really rank it higher. Next, I have the Mel Vita palette, and this was another one that Chris sent me. And I'm so thankful that she sent this to me because it's one you can't get anymore. But I love it so much. And I feel like I'm in the minority because I feel like people like the Morte better. By the way, this is they're a pair, like they were sold together, and there's little magnets that hold them together. But yeah, I feel like a lot of people like the Morte more than the Vita, but I like the Vita more because I think it's just such a fun color story. It's just like bright and poppy, and it makes me happy to look at. And but they do pair really well together, and that's kind of how they were intended to be. So I just think this is a more fun color story. It's not as dark, and I have transition shades. I have like my pick of transition shades, which I like. So yeah, really love this palette. I'm so grateful that Chris sent it to me. Next, I have the Mel Cheese and Parties. This is one I bought myself, and I just love this palette so much. It's gorgeous. It looks so good on the eyes. Like, it's just, if I want to look really pretty, and like, this is a great like date night palette for me. It's just really pretty. So I don't really have anything negative to say about it. I mean, these three shimmer, this shade, She's in Parties, Sleepwalk, and Lost Control, they're a little bit lackluster as far as shimmers go. I do like the shimmer shade Strange Love, but these are kind of lackluster. But I feel like I can use a different topper shade or different shades from other palettes, and I'm fine with that. I really like Skeleton Kiss in the inner corner. It's really pretty, like iridescent, like pinky lavender shade. Yeah, nothing bad to say about this palette really, except for what I said. But I really do enjoy this palette. So next I have the Planet Spirit palette from that Odin's Eye collection. What was it called? The Perfect World collection. And this was in collaboration with Batty Veen, and this was my favorite of the three, obviously. This one just makes me so happy to look at it. I love this palette. And I feel like a lot of people say that it's kind of like they don't know how to put looks together with this palette, but I think it's actually pretty easy to use. Well, for one, the pink and this light pink and this dark pink pair well together. I mean, I feel like that's kind of the obvious pairing, but if you just do one matte and any of the shimmers, it looks really good. I think the mattes, they blend out really well, and I don't really require a really dark outer corner. I like a dark outer corner, but it's not like a requirement for me. And I think it's super fun to have this in the summer, and I kind of want to use it soon. It's just such a fun palette, and I think all the shades perform well. I do think they all pair nicely together. And yeah, so if you're struggling, just do like one matte and a shimmer. And you could also pair this palette with the other two palettes. They pair nicely together. I really like the quality of these shades. They're neon, but they blend out really well. They stay on the eyelids, like they don't crease on me. I don't have any issues with this palette, so one of my favorites. I'm so glad I picked this up. I love this palette. Okay, so now we're getting into the top 5, and these top 5 are really good palettes. So this is the Adept Heather Austin palette, and these shades, most of them outside of the formats are all special shades. This one I use a lot. I pair it with a lot of other palettes. They're all gorgeous shades, and I just love them so much. I'm so glad I got to try the Adept formula. I definitely want to try more from them, but they are kind of pricey. So I just have this one, but I do love it. It is really fun. I love using it, and I'm just so glad I got it. Yeah, it's one of my favorite palettes, obviously. Next I have the Ace Beauty Paletopoli palette, and this is just such a fun palette. I love the color story. I get so excited when I open it up. It's just so fun, and I feel like the shimmers are really good. The mattes, like some of the mattes are a little bit difficult to work with, but only slightly. It just takes a little bit of finessing, but overall it's just like such a fun palette. One of my favorite palettes. This top 5 are all like one of my favorite palettes. So I love the bright poppy shades, the grungier tones. Yeah, it's just a fun palette. I love this palette. Okay, so top 3. And I guess 3 and 2. So I have such a hard time. This is like number 3 and 2. I have a hard time picking a favorite between these two. These are the Halloween palettes that Odin's Eye and Angelica Nyqvist released, and I love Angelica Nyqvist. She's definitely one of my favorite YouTubers, and struggling. And I just felt like these palettes are so fun. I love pairing them together, which is part of why I couldn't really pick a favorite, because I I love these tones, but then I also love these tones. So I really struggled to try to pick a favorite, and I still can't pick a favorite. Yeah, I can't pick a favorite. I love these two. I'm so glad I picked them up. I think for me, I love the Oden's Eye formula. I hear people say the shimmer's hard pan and stuff like that, but I haven't had that issue. So I love the formula of Oden's Eye, and I had such a fun time playing with both of these palettes this year. So well, since I got them, which was October, September, sometime late in the year, but I had a lot of fun with these. I don't know if they're still around. I think they are, but as I'm filming this, but I'm really glad that I got these and I love them. Finally, my number one palette is the Cosmic Brushes Muse palette. It's what I'm wearing today. It's just like a beautiful fairy garden palette. I've heard people say it's vintage, it's like a vintage garden or a grungy garden, and yeah, it's all those things. It's just gorgeous. I love this combination of colors. It's just, there's nothing I would change about this palette. I love it so much. The performance of all the shades is fantastic. I get excited every time I open this palette. I just love it so much. I want the rest of the palettes from this brand. These palettes, by the way, if you didn't know, are from Cosmic Brush. Or Cosmic Beauty. I think they changed their name to Cosmic Beauty. They're a UK indie brand, and their palettes sell out super fast. So if you want one of their palettes, I would recommend following them on Instagram, like signing up for their mailing list or something like that, and also like setting an alarm or something like that, because they do sell out really fast. They are very fairly priced, I think, for what they are, because they are some of the best shadows I've used. I think they're one of my favorite formulas, possibly my favorite formula. In Oden's Eye, I don't know, it's really hard for me to choose, but I can't say anything bad about this palette. I just love it so much. It definitely makes me want to try more from Cosmic Brushes. Their Winter Wonderland that they just released, it looks so pretty. Definitely want to get that one. Their Delicious Delights palette. So all the palettes are so pretty. So yeah, this is my number one palette of 2023. And actually it might be my number one palette in my whole collection. I love it so much. So that was my ranking for all of the eyeshadow palettes I used in 2023. What did you think? Do you agree with them, with my ranking? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments. Let me know what your favorite palettes that you tried this year were. I would love to know. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to watch this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up. Please subscribe if you haven't, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.